Hi, I'm Rebecca and this is episode 6 of the Creabea Knitting Podcast. Hello and welcome. I'm Rebecca. I am a crafter based in London and originally from Edinburgh, and about 2 weeks away from the move back to Edinburgh, so I think this will be the last episode of the podcast filmed from London. This is a knitting blog or a podcast all about knitting. What I've been knitting on, what I'm currently knitting on, and what I'd like to be knitting on in the near future. And today I have a lot to talk about, and also I can get this into a format in my head, so I think it's going to be chaotic. If you are a new viewer, apologies, maybe watch last week's or last episode, I think it was more calm. If you're a returning viewer, welcome back. Yeah, we'll probably have maybe around an hour's footage worth of chaos today. I have a lot to talk about. I have finished objects, I have a lot of gift knitting, a couple of sweater whips and some acquisitions. And for the acquisitions, I actually did a little tour of some London yarn shops last week, and so I thought I would talk you through what I got, but also talk you through the shops that I went to as I did it. Yeah, I think that's everything. Can you tell that I'm already overwhelmed by how much stuff is around me? I just don't know where to start. Let's start with the beautiful elephant in the room, which is what I'm wearing. And this is my very first finished object. I finished it yesterday. It is hot off the needles. This is its first wear. This is my Maja cardigan, which is my festive garment of the year. I can stand up and show you. I'm just wearing it tucked into a skirt. It is a colourwork cardigan with colourwork on the arms and the yoke. It's steeked, so it's got a button band, and it has these beautiful little pewter buttons on it. And yeah, so let me talk about it. The pattern firstly. So the pattern is the Maja cardigan by Helene Magnuson for Yarbo, and it is a free pattern. So I'll talk about it quite freely because everyone can just go and look at the pattern if they want to. The yarn is Istex Lettlopi, which is 100% Icelandic yarn. It is incredibly affordable. Sorry, there are sirens. I think it's less than £3 a ball. I think it's maybe £2.85 a ball in the UK. And I used, I think, 7 balls. I will confirm that, but I think I used 6 red and 2 white, so that's 8 balls. So yeah, this comes in at less than £20 for what I consider to be an absolutely, possibly the best thing I've ever made. And obviously one of the cheapest. I have this much left. I have quite a bit of white left, but I have this much left in the red, which I just weighed, and it is 35 grams. So I do think you'd need, at least in my size, I did need that last red ball. But yeah, I made it in, like I say, this beautiful red, and then just a plain white for the colour work. Pattern yarn. Okay, the changes I made are quite extensive. So I have made this before, and I made it as a top-down sweater. If you've been here before, you'll probably have seen it because I talked about it in depth a few episodes ago. But if you want to know more about it and you've not seen those, feel free to go back, because yeah, it's a top-down grey and white version. This time I made it a bit closer to the pattern, but I still made some changes. So the first thing I did is I changed the colour layout quite a lot. I'll pop a picture in to show you the garment in the pattern, and it originally has 4 colours and I have made mine with just 2. I love the pattern, but I just don't think I could fit a 4 colour. I don't think I could fit into my wardrobe. I don't know what to wear it with. So I really simplified it and just used the red and white. And so I had to make some editorial decisions about where the colours went. So for example, my button band is the same colour as the background colour. First change. Second change is that I omitted the colour work from the waist down. So only my sleeves and my yoke have colour work on them. Just because. I liked it to be a bit more simple and a bit more straightforward, and I really like the grey one I made that was the same, so I stuck with it with the red. And the third change I made is about the sleeves. So I shared last time that I made a mistake with my grey version, which is that, okay, let me try to explain this properly. The sleeves in the pattern are knit cuff up and you join them under the arm. And the way the pattern directs you to do it is that it tells you to knit the colourwork chart and just to increase stitches as you go. And doesn't give you any instruction for how to increase the stitches in the colourwork chart. It's an 8 stitch pattern repeat. And so I had so many helpful people tell me how to do this and how they'd done it, and they look beautiful. And then I got to doing it and I got lazy and I just didn't do it. My grey version, the sleeves fit well. I love the way the sleeves fit. They're a little bit looser on the top, but otherwise it fits well. And so I thought, like, let's not go to all this trouble if it fits already. So that's what I did. I knit mine top down because I'm fussy or because I'm lazy, one of the two. So what I did is under the sleeves, I picked up however many stitches I picked up, I can't remember. And then I knit 2 together under the arm, so that basically when I started the main part of the sleeve, I had 60 stitches on the arm. I think I knit the size 4. And then by here, I had to have 48 stitches. And so what I did was I did 6 sets of 2 decreases between here and here. And then I just kept the same stitch count for all of the arms. Easy peasy. And I don't think it makes a big difference. I think it might, depending on like how you want to fit your body. But I just kept it really simple and just didn't do those decreases. And so I have like a matching colour work all the way around my arms, which I like, and it was way less fussy than working it out. But kudos to everyone who did work it out, because you are probably a better knitter than I am. The final thing about this is that this is the first ever time I've steeked a garment, which is ultimately colour work. You can knit colour work flat, but it's usually faster and for a lot of people easier to knit colour work round. And if you want a cardigan, you have to cut it up the middle. And yeah, you cut your cardigan open, which is, I think for a knitter, a really terrifying concept. So I had asked for some tips and I received a few. I used small sharp needles. I put a cutting board between the 2 layers, the back and the front of the cardigan, to make sure I didn't cut open the back of the cardigan. And I knit the button bands on before I cut it open, which meant that once the steek was cut, I was done, which I think would work mentally for me. I don't know if it's got theoretically a big difference, like I don't know if it makes a big difference to the project, but I found it really helpful and a lot less stressful for a first steek, because then the button bands were done, there was no like fiddling around with loose edges afterwards, it was just picked up, done, button band done, cut at the end. I don't know if I can show you this. I'm not wearing a shirt underneath this, so hopefully I don't flash anyone. That is my raw edge on each side. You can see I used a machine, I used a sewing machine to reinforce it. I have some red velvet ribbon on the way, which I'm going to put on either side of it. And I used these beautiful pewter buttons, which I had in my dressmaking stash that I bought to go on a skirt and then didn't ever make the skirt, I think. So I had the buttons left over. What I love about this is that I have some nice buttons, but often when I knit a cardigan, the fabric isn't strong enough, stable enough to withhold anything other than shell buttons. But this, like, it normally just like flops open and looks a bit messy. But this is quite a solid, stable fabric, and so I can have the buttons on and it doesn't make the fabric wobble. So yeah, and whilst talking about this, so this is the first ever time I steeked this, and I just went in, and I think because the steek was right at the end, I was quite confident, because I thought, like, I have to steek, but it's ages away. Like, knit the whole thing and then worry about it later. And by the time I was ready to steek, I was excited and I was looking forward to it, and I was like, oh, this is fun, this is cool. And so I think I'm like that with a lot of things in knitting. I very much just like jump in, cast on, fix the issues, like work the rest out later. Which is why I also want to talk now about the knit along that I'm currently running with Lisa from the And So On podcast. Lisa is an all-round maker. She does a lot of sewing, but she also does a couple of knitting editions, and we both have done a test knit together recently, and she's come to some of our knit nights, and I've just really enjoyed. She's someone that I've been watching. I went back and looked at the first one that I watched, and it was 4 years ago. Like, that was the first episode of hers I watched. So I'm very honoured to be doing a knit along with her. It is called the Knitting Firsts KAL, and it's very simple. It's just to knit something for the first time. So you could be knitting knitting for the first time. Like, you might not be a knitter, you might be a sewist, or you might be a crocheter, or you might not be a crafter and you think, I'll just knit something. You might be someone who knits a lot of one thing and wants to do something else. So maybe you'll make your first socks, or maybe you'll make your first garment. Or you could be a knitter who's done all the things, but you want to try a new technique like steeking, or brioche, or mosaic, or intarsia, or colour work. You know, the list is endless. So we have 2 hashtags. We have the Knitting Firsts KAL thread, and we have the just hashtags. It's being run on Instagram. Knitting Firsts KAL and the Knitting Firsts KAL FO. You can enter whips, so if I wasn't running the KAL, I could have entered with my whip and finished the steek as part of the KAL. And we'll draw winners from the hashtag, which has got the hashtag Knitting First FO. There have already been some posts in there, which is super exciting. People making their first socks, somebody made their first mittens. Loads of people shared comments last time about their knitting for the first time. Someone's going to try brioche, someone's going to try mosaic. And we've already got some very cool patterns, some cool prizes. We've got some stitch markers, we've got some project bags, we've got some patterns, including an ebook for some children's patterns, which I've seen a lot about on social media recently, and so I'll share a bit more about that next time. So prizes to be won, people, so go for it, knit something for the first time. I was thinking a lot about what I knit for the first time, and I think I'm going to try and make 2 together, like knit 2 at a time socks on magic loop, and I might try toe up. I'm yet to decide if it's toe up or not, but 2 at a time socks is going to be my entry. Not that I can win. Maybe I can win, no. But that's the plan. So yeah, that's my Maja cardigan. I'm so proud of this. I think this is maybe like the thing I'm most proud of knitting on maybe ever. I just really love it. I love the finished object. I love that I took some rests and challenges, but also I made it my own from the pattern. Yeah, it feels like a real display of my own craftsmanship. That sounds a bit arsey, but that's how I feel. And yeah, that's a bit about the Knitting Firsts KAL. So let me hop into some gift knitting. And a disclaimer, I'm doing a lot of gift knitting and it's a bit chaotic, so you've been warned. So gift knitting, I was trying to work out how best to showcase my gift knits, and I thought, should I do it by like FOs and then whips? Doesn't really work. Should I do it by like type of item? That also has limitations. Sorry, hiccups. So let me just jump in. The first thing is an FO. It's a bit damp, so I'll hold it up, but it won't be the best image of it because it's a bit heavy and a bit wet. This is a Spiritual Guardian cowl by Kat Weaver of the Heather and Hops podcast. I have made this pattern before, and it's wonderful. It's an amazing pattern, both great fun to knit and also it's a really nice finished object, which I'm sorry I'm not showcasing how nice it is right now. I have made mine so the pattern calls for either DK or fingering and mohair together, but it also does say, like, feel free to try this with other yarns and different needle sizes. So in the interest of using some scraps and also getting a fabric I wanted and also getting it knit up quickly, I knit this with 1 strand of Cascade 220, which is a leftover skein that I had in this pale grey, which again is showing a bit darker. It's a really dove grey. And I held it together with 1 strand of Hobby Diablo white mohair. You can't see the fluff because it's damp. And there are 4 sizes in the pattern, so there's like a snuggly and a loose, and a short and a long one. And I previously made a version of this cowl, and I made it like the longer one and like the longer and the looser version, like the biggest one, and I love the fit of it so much. This is knit up because it's knit on, I think I did it on 4mm needles with much chunkier yarn. It's pretty much the same. I made it snuggly and I made it shorter, and the finished dimensions are pretty much the exact same as the other one I made in DK. So yeah, sorry that I'm not showing this off very well. I thought it would be dry by now. You can see it has these like really nice travelling cables. Oh, I'm knocking everything. Oh, there we go. So that's my first FO. I love this. I have one more that I'm planning to make before Christmas. And I think this would be a great project for knitting firsts if you've not done cabling before. It's a well-detailed pattern and it's quite a methodical repeat, but also there are a lot of types of cables. So there's like a 2x1 cable, 2x2 cable, traveling cables. It's got all of it. So I think it'd be a really good way of getting like a breadth of experience in a very simple pattern, which knits up quite quickly and which the end result is beautiful. That is the first one. Okay, let's jump into the sock saga. So I shared on the podcast before that my stepdad is incredibly knitworthy and I am making him 3 pairs of handmade socks for Christmas in like a set. He has 2 pairs already. One was for Christmas last year and one was for his birthday, and he wears them every single day. And so I'm making him 3 more. And so the first pair, I thought I was organised, and I started the first pair and finished the first pair way back in September in this very cool like self-striping kind of colourway, which is Cascade Heritage Stripe, I think it's called. And then I have 2 plain coloured ones, and the plan was to make like 2 textured pairs to go with the, so one would be self-striping, one would be textured, and one would be ribbed, was what I thought. So this is the second pair, and these were on the podcast as a whip. I think they were actually, one of them was on as a finished object. The story of these socks is I cast them on, I think I cast on to a few stitches, I will make that clear, but I cast them on and knit the first one completely, blocked it, whilst it was blocking started the second one and got the second one up to the heel, like just before the heel turn, before the heel flap. The first one dried and I tried it on and it was way too small for me, and he is at least two shoe sizes bigger. So I got a bit dejected and lost a bit of heart with them, and I was a bit angry at the world and with socks. So I just kind of forgot about them for a while. And also, the other sock was, like, I didn't want to turn the heel, and I realised I don't really like heel flap construction. Like, I don't like doing it. I think it takes too long. So we'll come back to that, but anyway, I got a bit blocked by this, and then last week I realised, like, of course this is really stupid that it took me so long to realise, but I realised it's a cuff down sock. I could just rip out and then add some more rows and then knit the toe again, so I did that. And of course it took me like 2 hours, there was no time at all. And at the same time I whipped through the heel turn on the other sock and I got that one finished, and so now I have a finished pair, and so 2 of 3 pairs of his Christmas socks are done. Now, third pair, I'm making it of this yarn, which is they're all Cascade Heritage, and I picked them because the colour selection was so great and I could get that like collection of socks that I wanted. This is like an olive green colour, and so I've made this much progress. However, I tried these on 9-inch circulars and the conclusion is I don't like them. I asked for some tips on Instagram and people said like hold them a bit looser and like don't grip too tightly, but I just find my hands hurt, and I think I've given it a good whop. Like, that's a good amount of, my plan was to knit a whole sock on it, but honestly I just don't like it. And then like the fabric's not so, like, it's really messy, and some of that will block out but not all of it, so I think I'm gonna restart these off on a different needle. And I've really taken to magic loop, which we'll come back to in a second. But yeah, I think I have enough yarn. I should weigh this to check. I might have to make a shorter pair, but I think I have enough. And then yeah, this will just get, I'll keep it in case I need the yarn, but this will just be turned into scrap yarn. So I do still have a third pair to make for him, but I'm feeling on track. I have a lot of sock mojo right now. However, when I was, so many sock things were on. So that's the plan with that one. I'll make the third pair. I might be knitting them right up until Christmas. Like, this might be my, like, I think I might be making them on Christmas Eve. He might get them unblocked, or like one blocked, one not. That's okay, that's fine with me. So I also wanted to make socks for someone else. However, I decided to make the Sunday socks by Petite Knit, which are a worsted weight sock pattern, knit up one size 4mm. I use 3.5, but I think the pattern recommends a 4mm needle, and they knit up so quickly. So I have 2 finished socks, but they're 2 different socks. I told you there'd be chaos today. Like, this doesn't make sense. This is an insight into my brain right now. So I picked up, and I'll come back and talk about this in the shop I got it in, but I picked up some Knitting for Olive Heavy Merino. Now I am obviously, like, I'm on Instagram in the knitting world. So I see everyone gushing over knitting for Olive, and I was also gushing over some of it when I was there. And so I knew I needed to get some yarn for these socks I wanted to make, and I picked up some heavy merino. And I am being honest, I am not a fan. It's just not what I expected. Like, it's not very soft. It's okay. It's really quite rustic. I didn't particularly enjoy knitting with it. Like, I didn't really like it on my needles. I didn't feel good. It does smell wonderfully sheepy. But yeah, it's just not what I expected. I expected a much softer yarn, and if I'm being honest, the pattern recommends Filcolana Peruvian Highland wool, and I ordered some to make these socks for myself in probably January, and it is beautifully soft and cheaper. So just get that if you're gonna make them. But yeah, so I got this and I got home with it, and I cast on the sock, and then I wasn't loving how it was knitting up. It just felt more rustic than what I was looking for the gift for this person. And then also, I just felt this colour was a bit too, like, I wanted it to be like a Sunday morning oatmeal colour, and I think it is that, but it just felt too rustic. So I lengthened the sock and made it into the men's, well, not the men's, but the bigger size. I've not woven an ends yet, sorry. And so I'm going to add them to the trio of socks. He's now getting, what is it called? Quad? I don't know. The word is right there. Anyway, he is going to get 4 pairs of socks instead of 3, and one of them is going to be these. He wears his socks indoors for the most part. Like, they don't get worn very much. Like, they don't wear down. So I think these will be fine. And yeah, it's a real chunky one. You knit this big long cuff, but then once you've done the cuff, the rest flies away. So that is one half finished object. But of course, once I did this and like ruled this out, I had to find a yarn for the original gift and the same socks. Unfortunately, I had some yarn in stash, and I have another one of the socks. And so this is the second one. It's really beautiful. I like this yarn a lot. This is Croft. And I will put the colourway below. It's this lovely like heather, it's like a kind of like creamy neutral background, and then it has a heather of like pink and purple, and there's actually some green in there which you can't really see as well. But yeah, so I have 2 individual socks, both of which need partners, but I will say this knit up in a day, like 4 or 5 hours of knitting. So I'm not too stressed about getting them finished. Socks. Okay, let's move on to hats. Okay, so hats. So as per, like, I don't just have items to show, I have stories to tell, which is why this is so chaotic. So I finished one hat. Actually, let's take it backwards. Last time I came on, I showed you, I actually have it. I showed this hat, which is a beautiful hat, and I love it, I'm obsessed. However, somebody very kindly left a comment and told me, by the way, I think your stitches are twisted. And I was like, what? They are. You can see it really clearly, like this is twisted rib and this is regular rib. I mean, it's not really regular rib. Ultimately, I twist my pearls. And I have been doing this since I taught myself to knit continental 18 months ago. So I had a bit of a meltdown. I was like, oh my gosh, I've been knitting wrong for months and months, and I'm not a real knitter. And 2 things came out of it. Firstly, people are wildly helpful. I think over the course of like 2 days, I received maybe 70 messages from people with tips on how to fix this, which was amazing. I think I'm gonna give Norwegian purling a go, and also maybe, I worked out what it is. Ultimately, I wrap the yarn the wrong way around the purl stitch, which leads to a twisted stitch. However, the other thing I learned is that, firstly, it's quite good to twist your stitches in ribbing, because you can see, like, the right side, this is really, really neat ribbing. So it does lead to a neater rib. And secondly, as long as you like the fabric it creates, who cares? That's the baseline. Like, if you like the end product, it doesn't matter if you're knitting it right or wrong. Anyway, very philosophical for you. So I decided I will fix this with my knit. Like, I will definitely fix my pearls, and I'm planning to do it in the new year. I really want to knit the Jenny sweater by Petite Knit, which is a 2x2 ribbed sweater. So I will fix it for that. However, I'm not going to fix it on any whips because it will change the fabric halfway through. There's no point in doing it. And the only other things where it makes a big difference are I'm making a ton of ribbed hats right now, and I quite like the look of them, the way they are, I like the fit of them. So I'm just going to go with it. No stress. I'm already stressed by making so many gifts. Let's not stress by saying I'm a bad knitter. So the first one is this one. It is real cute. I also have a pom-pom. I put the pom-pom on and then I blocked the hat and took the pom-pom off. But yeah. It's a really nice colour. It is Sandnesgarn. I can't remember which colour, what it's called. I put it on screen. Oh, I've got a ball here. It's Sandnesgarn Pure Gynt. Yeah, it's the Pure Gynt by Sandnesgarn. It is 100% Norwegian wool. It is lovely, and it smells really good. I do like it a lot. However, for gift knitting, it isn't a very soft yarn. Compared to this one, it is soft. So this is like the bottom of the scale, and then in the middle of the scale is the Pure Gynt, and then the softest is by far the Filcolana Peruvian Highland wool. And I wish I discovered that before I started gift hats, because I do think I would have picked that instead. But the finished object is so cute. I blocked it and it made no difference at all to the softness of it. But yeah, I think it's a really cute hat. I made it slightly shorter than the last one, but I just think it's really cool. And yeah, it's a gift, and I think the colours are pretty on point for the person. That's number one. Number two, I started making and then I changed my colour for the person I'm giving it to. So this one will be for me, but I also, again, more chaos, I just ripped the needle out. I needed they're size 4, and I have everything I'm knitting right now is on a size 4, and I just pulled them out because I needed them. So I'll put them back in. It's pretty, you can see like it's maintained its integrity quite well. But again, this is a grey version, and this is also knit up in the Pure Gynt. One thing I would say about both this and Peruvian Highland wool, it's super inexpensive. So I think both of them are around £3.50, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. You can get a hat out of 2 balls of yarn, so you're talking like £7 for a hand knitted item, and it knits up pretty fast. I ordered both from knit.co.uk, 2 T's, which is Simona, who you will hear only amazing things about because her delivery is insane. Like, she just delivers like immediately. I think she posts everything pretty much the same day if you order before like 5 PM, and it's always first class post. So in the UK I always get it the next day, which is great, amazing. And also, I've not ever done this, but I've heard a lot of other podcasters who have been like torn about what colour, or like they wanted to match 2 yarns and they've messaged her and she has sent them like a perfect match. So I think, yeah, really good customer service. But yeah, I just thought that was a really nice and expensive, but they're such a nice colour, aren't they? They're quite modern colours for a lot of the Sandnesgarn yarns, and so I felt like I'm giving quite like an on-trend gift in 100% Norwegian wool, hand knitted. Took me maybe 2 days to knit, but also only like £7. Would recommend. Continuing with the hats. So the grey hat was going to be for somebody, it's now for me. The replacement of that is this like goldy mustard coloured one. So, I see so much jumping around. This one, which I just showed, is from a dyer called Tumeke Yarn, who is a UK based dyer who dyes based on like New Zealand inspiration, like inspiration from places and things associated with New Zealand. And my boyfriend's family are all from New Zealand. His parents are from there, they moved over here, and so him and his brother are both Kiwis. And so I'm making a couple of hats for the fam. And so the first one I made is this one for his dad, which is in Iraqi colour, which is the name of Mount Cook, which is the tallest peak in New Zealand. The second one is this amazing golden colour, and it is Hokey Pokey. And Hokey Pokey, I gather, somebody's going to correct me and tell me I'm wrong, is an ice cream flavour that's kind of like honeycomb, so that like makes a lot of sense. And it's this real rich like mustard yellow, and his brother is quite I don't know, he's currently rocking like kind of long hair and a moustache and thinks he's too cool for school. He's just graduated uni. And I think this is like standout piece enough. Like the grey one would be fine, but this is a bit more like a bit more ostentatious and a bit more out there. And yeah, it's also just a really lovely tonal. And this yarn is a dream to knit up. It's so nice. It is superwash, which I usually don't love. I do love this. It is 166 meters per 100 grams, so it's quite a thick iron weight. And it's just beautifully squishy and exactly what you want. Like on your head, it's like cozy and warm, but also like a nice drape to it. And as a knitter, it's really good to knit up. So I started this, we went to the theatre on Monday and I took this with me and made a little bit of progress. Okay, we're mostly there with gift knits, but the last two go together. It's one pair of socks and one hat. So again, apologies for this chaotic jumping around. So the Creabea boyfriend is a very knit-worthy person. He wears his hand knits all the time. He's got 2 pairs of socks and a hat. He refuses to let me make him a sweater because he believes in the boyfriend curse and thinks if I make him a sweater we'll break up. But of course I have to make him some Christmas gifts. However, despite the fact that we don't live together right now, and we will in 2 weeks' time, he's still here all the time. Like, we see each other most days. So I've been struggling to find time to cast this on and get it knit up without him asking what it is, because I'd like it to be a surprise. And so he's away for work this week. He left yesterday, he's back on Friday, which is, so I have Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and on Friday. And my attempt is to make him a pair of socks and a hat in that time. So I cast on yesterday. Let me show you the progress so far. Okay, so the first is the hat. Now I'm also making this in the Tumeke yarns. I will say, if you're not, like, even if you're not remotely affiliated to New Zealand, the colours are beautiful. I am not a huge hand-dyed yarn fan. I don't know, that's not the right way to put it. I think hand-dyed yarn is beautiful, but I don't find it fits into my everyday aesthetic very well, and I don't really see a space in my wardrobe for like a full hand-dyed sweater anytime soon. However, I think gift knitting is the perfect time to dive into some hand-dyed yarn. In other podcasts episodes, I made a shawl out of some hand-dyed yarn, but the name had a good meaning. And again, with this, like the yarn has such a good naming, and like I want to support the business, and so I'm very willing to spend a bit more on some hand-dyed yarn for these. Anyway, this is the hat. So again, I'm making, oh look at that though, like, I don't know if you can see, you definitely can see, it is as a base like a purple, but it has these really cool like dual tone speckles. So there's a pink and there's a yellow and there's a blue. But overall it's still quite like a dark neutral, which I quite like. So I am making the exact same pattern. It is, I didn't mention that for any other ones, it is the classic ribbed hat by Pearl Soho. Also a free pattern. However, I cast on for, I think the pattern asks you to use like 3.25mm. I'm using 4mm and I am a loose knitter, almost always down a half size from pattern, so 4 or 4.5mm. I cast on 108 stitches, and then, which is I think the smallest adult size or like the large child size, and then I like knit to the dimensions of the second, like the adult medium, which I think is 10.5 inches. And you'll see, like, this is the one that I made before, and it's actually a bit too long. Like, my head is, my boyfriend has a huge head. His head is like 24 inches, and so this fits him perfectly. So I do think that like it does have quite a good, it would fit a lot of people. And I found it to just be a really nice, a good formula, like that pattern, but a bit of modification. So this is the yarn. It is, yeah, it's a lot of fun to knit up. And his favourite colour is purple, and he has been admiring this one so much. He's obsessed with it. He keeps saying, oh, I like it, oh, I really like it. So as a surprise, I got him some of the same yarn. But it's purple, which is his favourite colour. And so I need to knit this to 8.5 inches. And so I cast on yesterday, and I made it up to like here. And then this morning I had a meeting, so got this much done. And I have another meeting this afternoon. And I'm hoping today to finish the full like length of the cap, and then tomorrow to be able to do the crown decreases. And the second thing is a pair of socks. So as I said, his favourite colour is purple. So I also cast these on yesterday. Can you believe it? I feel like a bit of a machine. So it's a really nice yarn. It is a sock yarn, which I bought from Lovecraft, and it is the Nordic, it's called like Nordlys, like Nordlys. I have no idea what the colour is. I picked it because his purple's his favourite colour, and it's, as you can see, it's got this like purple fade. It also, I hate yarn that's balled up like this because it's a nightmare to like unwind. But you can see it also has some green and some yellow and this rust colour, but most of it's purple. So yeah, this is where I've gotten to, and I've done like a 15 stitch cuff, 64 stitches, 2mm needles, because again I'm a loose knitter. I've done 80 rows. I've popped in an afterthought heel line, and I'm keep going for like 65 for the foot. A few things about this. Firstly about this sock. Yeah, I'll go that way first. So he wears his hand knit socks every single day. I think if he could, he would not wear socks ever, or shoes. He'd go out in the world barefoot. He's a bit of a hobbit. But he, when he does have to go outside, he wears hand knit socks. And so I would say like 80% of the time he wears the 2 pairs of hand knit socks I've made him. And I'll just sit on top of his shoes, and he'll put them on for like 20 minutes to go out, and then come home and leave them on top of his shoes again. So these probably get washed, like, he has 2 pairs that are interchanging, and I reckon they get washed every week, every 2 weeks. And I can't believe I'm going to show his socks on the podcast, but they are in pretty bad shape. Oh, you can't even see how bad they are. I don't think it's showing up. Like, they're really heavily felting. And the reason I have these ones is because the heels are starting to go, and I need to look into darning them. So, however, he's got this pair and a plain red pair, and he wears these ones by far the most. So I asked him, like, you know, very sussily, like, oh, why do you always wear those ones more? So that I could make sure that these ones met the requirement. And so he likes these ones because they're longer in the leg. Oh look, even the ribbing's come loose. He likes them because they're longer in the leg, so I'm going to make these ones longer. And then I was on the fence about what to do with the heel, because these have got a heel flap and gusset, and I know that heel flap and gusset is the strongest kind of heel to put in because it's like slip stitches, and so it's like reinforced. However, I don't like knitting heel flap and gusset. I just don't like doing it. And as you can see on this, I don't know if you can see actually, on this one, it's worn right through. I think because the fabric is felted so much, I'm going to struggle to darn this because I don't have like clear stitches to darn into. It's just felted. So what I was thinking, actually, my favourite heel to knit is an afterthought heel, because I like just being able to like power through and then get it at the end, and it's nice and quick, and I like being able to like fun choices. However, practically, what I also thought is, if I put an afterthought heel into these, it will be much, much easier for me in the future to just cut out the heel and re-knit a heel onto a pair of socks than it will be for me to try and repair a wholly heel flap and gusset. So I'm making these as afterthought heel. And the second thing I was going to mention is I picked up these needles last week, also on my London yarn shop tour, and they are the Chowgu. I just pronounce this the way I hear everyone else saying it. I don't know if that's the right way. Is it Chowgu? Sharps, 2mm with the infamous red cable, and these have revolutionized how I knit socks. I love them. Firstly, I'm way faster. This is insane. This is 1 day's progress. Secondly, it's fun, and it feels very ergonomic. It feels natural in my hands to be knitting this way, which of course is amazing. And yeah. So who knew? I loved DPNs since forever, since I started making socks. So like 2 years ago. And then I tried the small circulars and didn't like them. And I was always like, oh, I don't like magic loop because there's so much faffing to take the cable back and forward. But this cable really does make a difference. It's really different to other cables that I've had. I don't know how to describe it because I didn't understand it until I got a pair, and now I understand it. I now of course want a whole set of Chowgus. But I have a full set of needles, so I don't need them. What I'm thinking is at some point in the future, maybe I'll treat myself to the size 4s with some cables, because I use size 4 for a lot. It's my most used needle, and maybe that's a nice way to get to use them without breaking the bank and spending, what, like £200 on a set of interchangeables. So yeah, that is the last of my gift knitting. and it is Wednesday today. He's back on his trainers on Friday, so he's back by Friday evening. So I want to finish this sock and the second sock and the rest of this hat in 3 days. I think if I get that done, I will be feeling much better about the rest of my gift knitting, because the rest of it then feels like quite achievable. Anyway, that's the chaotic part, I think. Like, I think that was the bit that was really crazy, that I thought, like, I can't work out how to structure my way through my gift knitting. But there we are. And yeah, I have a couple of whips. Sweater whips, which you've seen before, but I have progress. So let me quickly go through them, and then I can wrap up with my little London yarn shop update and acquisitions. So, sweater whips. The sun has just like come out beautifully. Unfortunately, like behind me, but it is giving everything like a nice glow. So hopefully it'll not ruin colours. The first one, so I have 2 sweater whips. I do have 2 other sweaters which I'm working on, but they've taken a break until after Christmas, because you've seen the gift knitting is excessive. So the first one is sweater number 9. I will try to put some footage in. I did this a lot on the first few episodes, where I like filmed a flat lay of this and then I forgot to do it in the past few, so I will try and get back to it in this episode. So it is, oh yeah, the light is really getting in the way. I can tell you about it anyway. So it is the sweater number 9, which is a pattern by My Favourite Things Knitwear, which has, as design features, this like 2x1 chunky collar, and then this really interesting raglan detail. It is knit up in chunky, so I think the pattern calls for Aran weight and mohair, which is what I'm using. I'm using Cascade 220 in the colourway Pumpkin Spice, and 2 strands of Hobby Diablo. And last time I finished the body, so I've now also done one sleeve, and I've started the second sleeve. I'd like to get this finished before we move, just so that I don't have a whip. Like, it's just done, I can pack it in a suitcase and not worry about it. And honestly, I think this much knitting took me maybe an hour to just do like this much of the sleeve. So I reckon next week this can be like my meetings knitting. When I've got my gift knits done, I can just sit through my meetings and go on ahead on this, and I think it'll be done pretty quickly. Emma from the Potter and Bloom podcast has made this exact jumper, and she made hers long before mine, and I completely copied the idea. But it's very cute because she has put a label inside that says one of a kind. And she said to me, like, if once you're done, let me know and I'll send you a one of a kind label as well, so we can both have one of a kind jumpers, which are actually the same jumper, although we knit them ourselves, so they still are one of a kind, but not really. I thought that was really cute. I'm excited. It's really fun to knit. It's a really elegant looking pattern. I follow the hashtag on Instagram, and there's so much nice stuff. It makes me want to cast on like a new one every single time I see a new jumper on the thread. The one thing I will say is, so long time watchers will know that this was originally another FO. This originally was a Magnolia Bloom cardigan, and I just didn't like the finished object and I ripped it out and made this. However, I did lazily rip it out. So I ripped it out, rewound it all up together. I can show you. I rewound the whole thing, like mohair and all, into new balls of yarn, and I'm knitting onto it, which for the most part is fine, but you can see like it's a bit noodle yarn, which has just meant that my finished fabric isn't particularly neat. It's just not very, I don't know if you can really tell. There's a lot of like texture to it because it's like I'm knitting up noodle yarn. I think most of that will come out of blocking. I'm feeling confident with that, but I did get a tip last time, which is to put the yarn in like lukewarm water, like put the project in lukewarm water as you normally would. Let it cool down completely and then stretch diagonally once it's completely cool in like cold water, and pull it diagonally. And I'm going to try that with this for sure, because I just think it's a very elegant pattern, and my slightly funky yarn has just kind of made it look a bit like chunky and I don't know, not very elegant. So that is the plan with this. I will definitely have this. I mean, my next episode, I'm hoping to film one more before Christmas, and I will definitely wear this Maja cardigan again because it's my Christmas jumper. But you'll see this again soon because yeah, we're one sleeve away, and I really want to try and get through some chunky knits in like the heart of winter so I can wear them. And I have some sweater quantities for like DK weight sweaters. Wow, we're really getting some sun. I have some sweater quantities for some DK weight yarn sweaters, and I will get around to them probably in the spring when I don't need chunky sweaters as much. So that is first whip. Soon to be done, I reckon. We're not far away from completion. The second one is a test knit. So I had the absolute delight of test knitting the Billy pattern, the Billy pullover by Sari Nordland. The pattern is live, it was released last week, and last week was also the deadline for the test knit. So I posted a progress picture of this, and I think it got more likes than anything I've ever put on the internet ever. So it is an all over cable knit sweater, raglan, top down with a chunky collar, and I hope the light is in my favour. Kind of. So this is the sweater. It is, again, I'll try and put some cutaways in. It is a box, like a boxy fit, with just like covered in cables. Cables everywhere, like honeycomb cable in the middle, and then cables either side, and I'm knitting mine in the Cascade 220, also colourway called the Shire, which is this beautiful green colour. I might actually just put the progress picture in here instead of taking cutaway, because the light in that is really good and really shows you like how mine looks. So since last time I finished a sleeve. The test knit ended on the 30th of November, and by the test knit deadline you had to finish the yoke and the sleeve, and I finished the yoke and the sleeve. And I did my first ever tubular bind off. I think I'm lucky because it's quite chunky yarn, so I think like it didn't really show up any of my mistakes, but I really like doing this. I'm excited to do it on the sweater. It's just so clean, like it's really clean. If you compare this, sorry I'm all over the place, this is the bind off of the sleeve of my sweater number 9. Which will block out, I know it'll block out, but like it's just so, ugh. And then you look at this. Oh. Those are the things that only knitters would notice, but still get us excited. So yeah, this is my Billy sweater that kind of broke the internet, or at least broke my Instagram. The pattern is live, I would completely recommend it. It is a lot of knitting, like without a doubt it is a lot of knitting. And it's a lot of cabling. And I think if you're not comfortable with either of those things, then maybe do another project first, like do another cable knit project first to get your head around it. It's not difficult cables, they're very easy cables, and once you've done it a few times, the pattern is definitely in your head, but it's not very quick going, like it's quite a heavy going pattern. I'm taking a little break from this whilst I finish gift knitting, just because I get a lot of joy out of knitting on this, and I want to be able to enjoy it all and not have to think, not feel guilty like, oh, I'm knitting on this and I should knit on my gift knits. And the other reason is because my cable broke and I don't have the patience to pick up all these stitches which are they've just been twisted in cables. I don't have the patience to do it just now, so I will do that soon. I have exactly 2 balls of yarn left, in fact slightly more I think. My sleeve, yeah, I have a little scrap left. So this is what's pretty much left of my sleeve, just this little tiny nugget. So I'm a little bit nervous because I now know I've got 2 skeins left. I now know that I will have a whole skein for the other sleeve, which means I have 1 skein left for the body, which I think should be okay. Oh, you can see it quite well there. I think it should be okay, but yeah, I have just over 1 skein for the body and the ribbing. So I just need to be careful with that, but my plan is to do the other sleeve first and then come back to finish the body, and then like aggressively block this out because I think you can see it's a really stretchy fabric. So yes, I think I've talked about this in the past 3 episodes, and every time somebody messages me and says, what is that sweater, like where do I find it? It is live, you can get it from Sari Nordland. And a comment on this, I now have a pattern code, pattern code? I have a code to get a free Sari Nordland pattern as my reward for test knitting. And I don't know what pattern to pick. I think it's called the Vargo pullover, which is currently being tested, but the way that she releases designs are usually monthly, and I'm a bit worried that that's going to be the January release and my code runs out on December 30th. So if anyone has knitted one of her designs before and can recommend one, I'd love to hear it. I don't know what to spend it on. It's exciting. Who doesn't love a free pattern? And my last comment on sweater whips is I just signed up to a test knit. I don't know if anyone watched last time and heard me say I'm not doing any test knits for a while because I found it quite stressful. Well, I signed up for one. I signed up to test the Crescendo sweater, which is a pattern by Sophie, who is the Knit Pearl Girl. I have one of her patterns in my library I've never cast on, and otherwise I've never knitted her sweater before, and I'm excited to try the test knit. My big reason for that is that I pop a picture, I think it's only a whipped picture, but I'll pop a picture of the work in progress shot here so you can see the pattern. It's like a top down chunky sweater with this diamond lace pattern. So it's quite a simple sweater, but it does have something interesting. And the recommended yarn is Wool and the Gang, or We Are Knitters, I think it's We Are Knitters Ecolana, which I am not really a big We Are Knitters fan. Like, I don't have anything against it, but they're quite pricey a lot of the time for what it is. But another recommended yarn is the West Yorkshire Spinners Retreat, and I have some. I have 3 skeins. I ordered it over a year ago with another project in mind, and they only sent me half the order, and then they were like, oh, you can return it, and and I just thought I'll keep it and order some more at a later date. But it's been sat in my stash for ages, and I probably wouldn't buy it now, if I'm honest, but I'm excited to use it up. So that will be on my nails very soon. I've not done anything, and I told Sophie, like, she messaged me on Instagram, and I told her, like, I'm not touching this until after Christmas, but the deadline is February 10th. Loads of time. So that's everything I'm working on. Oh, it's chaos. There's yarn everywhere in my house right now, and I'm meant to be packing and there's just yarn everywhere. But talking of yarn, I have one final little segment, which is a little bit of acquisitions. And as I said, I did some shopping in London a while ago, and I thought I would take you through some of my purchases from the yarn shops. Okay, so let me try to get through this at reasonable pace. We're not going to rush, but I'll try and keep up some pace. So, I had some holiday days to take before the end of the year, and given that we're leaving London, and I've been here for 3.5 years and only a knitter for maybe 1 and a bit years of that, I thought it would be nice to spend a day going to all the yarn shops in London. Which of course only another knitter would understand why that was a really fun thing to do. So I went by myself, I took the day off, and I started like a lazy morning. I just stayed in bed and knit, and then went off around the 5 yarn shops in London over the course of the afternoon. And I documented it. My goal was to take some footage and share it here, and I completely forgot. So what I did do was share about it on Instagram, and I've made a highlight of that and saved it in my Instagram profile, so you can always go back and see it. And you don't need an Instagram profile to be able to view that. So if you're watching and you're interested and want to see some footage or some pictures of the places, you can go and view that and don't need to have Instagram. And I'll put a link to it below. It's just, yeah, I'll put a picture here as well as to where you can find it. So there are 5 yarn shops in London. There are other places that sell yarn, but these are the 5 like big ones, and I went to all of them. So I figure I will start with where I started, talk about the shop, talk about the yarn I bought, move on. So I started all the way out in Richmond, which is in the very, very west of London. It took me like an hour on the tube, just like on the tube for an hour straight, to Tribe Yarns. And Tribe Yarns are amazing. The owner knit a shawlography, which is beautiful. She made quite a few modifications, but it was very weird. I got to see a shawlography in real life after hearing about it on the internet for so long. So that was cool. So it was a cool shop. Like, inside was a real like emporium. I love the selection of yarn. A lot of hand-dyed stuff, like a lot, especially on the ground floor, which is a lot of the fingering weight yarn, and like the mohair, and then upstairs is the worsted weight yarn. And a lot of the stuff on the ground floor was hand-dyed and beautiful, like really, really nice. The downsides are, I think I was unfortunate that I arrived when they opened, and there were quite a few people who arrived at the same time as me with questions, and so the staff were quite busy, but also there were some people who came in and asked questions who had obviously never knit before, and I didn't feel that the staff were particularly good at giving them answers. Like, I almost wanted to interrupt and be like, what about this? Because I just felt like they were going to leave the shop not being more confident about knitting, and of course like we always want more knitters. So that was a real shame. Somebody came in asking for yarn for a project and didn't really get a very helpful answer, and then somebody else also did and then was quite shocked at the price of some of the yarn, understandably, because a lot of the stuff you looked at was like hand-dyed skeins, and I think they could have been better directed to find something within their price point, if that makes sense. Anyway, I left with 3 skeins of yarn. So the first one is this beautiful skein of red arrowroot yarn. It is, I'm sure I've heard of this before, it is Manos del Uruguay, and it is the Allegria Grande. See that? Is that going to focus on anything on my face? Yeah. This is superwash. Yeah, so it's 980 meters per 100 grams, and it is 75% merino, 25% polyamide. And my goal is to make myself one of these hats. I love them, but I didn't love all the colours there for me, and so I got this bright red. I remember seeing Casey Apple from Young Folk Knits. She made herself a red hat, and I've wanted one ever since. So this will be for me sometime in January, once I'm over the stress of bulk knitting hats. And then I also got, I've already kicked this up, I got two skeins of Blue Sky Fibres Woolstok. It's called in this green, and that is to make another spiritual guardian cowl. I shared a few episodes ago that I had brought some Drops Charisma to make this, and I didn't love how it worked up. I just thought it felt like plasticky. So I bought some other yarn for it instead, and then I tried to swatch with it and didn't find it was enough. So I have also bought some mohair to go with it. So that's a gift knit to be, and that was at Tribe Yarns. The other thing about Tribe Yarns is that they have this beautiful gold ornate staircase, like a spiral staircase, which was stunning. However, accessibility, I don't know. Like, I was there with like my backpack and my boots and my chunky like winter coat, and even I thought I would struggle to get up these stairs properly without falling over. So I do think that for an accessibility perspective, it would be quite tricky to get up there if you aren't, if you have accessibility needs. So that was Tribe Yarns. And then after Tribe Yarns, I went also in the west to Beautiful Knitters. Beautiful Knitters is my new favourite yarn shop. It was stunning. If you are in or near London, go, like 100% go. It was amazing. The staff were so helpful, almost aggressively helpful. I think the owner or the woman who was working made me touch every sample they had, which I'm glad she did, but yeah, it was a lot. It was so friendly and so nice, and they really have a yarn for every single price point, and they also have a wonderful selection. They had a wall of knitting for Olive, which for anyone, it was like meeting a celebrity, right? It was like, oh my god, knitting for Olive, whole wall. And what I really think is that they specialise in a lot of European fibres, where other shops have a lot of American fibres, and so that was nice. It was a really well curated selection. So I bought 2 things from there. I bought the Knitting for Olive that I already talked about, the Heavy Merino, 2 skeins of this, and I bought 2 skeins of lambswool, which is the Kinross 4-ply 100% superfine lambswool, which is spun in Scotland. It's this really dark grey. And the reason I bought this was 100% because she made me touch the sample, and it was so soft and so fluffy. This yarn isn't particularly anything, but the sample Knit Up and Blocked was beautiful. I was obsessed. So I bought 2 skeins of this, which is 100 grams of fingering weight, so I think it's bang on, yeah, 200, so I got 410 meters. And my intention is to make a musselburgh hat, which I was never that fussed about making, but I'm so angry at everyone who calls it the musselburgh hat that it's consumed so much of my brain that now it's stuck in my brain and now I want to make it. So it's my own curse for being so angry about it. And I'm excited to make like a Scottish designer, Scottish name pattern, Scottish yarn. I'm moving to Scotland, there's a theme here, and I think it'll be really cozy. I've not looked at the pattern, but I have heard you can make it with a skein of fingering, like sock yarn. So I'm hoping that 410 meters is enough. If not, I think I could use like a scrap and tuck it on the inside. And on that, if anyone, I feel like Jonathan at Jonathan Days, he educated everyone on how to say musselburgh. And slowly but surely, the podcasting world is changing to Musselburgh. But if you're still out there and you're confused, the hat by Isolde Teague is called the Musselburgh hat. Musselburgh is a place just outside of Edinburgh. I lived there for a little bit when I was younger, and it's not called the Musselburgh hat, and it's just not, like, that's just not the name of it. So if you're calling it Musselburgh, it's just wrong and kind of annoying. And I'm really, like, it's really great on me. I don't know why it bothers me so much, but like, I find myself turning off podcasts when they keep calling it the wrong name, because I'm like, it's not the name. I know it's not such a small thing. I think it'd be like knitting a pattern called like the Montreal hat and calling it like the Montreal. Like, it's just not right. Anyway, all that to say, this is my yarn for a Musselburgh hat, and I bought this yarn from Beautiful Knitters, and that shop, 10 out of 10, like everything you'd ever want in a yarn shop. It was beautiful. Okay, I'm rushing because I have a meeting in 15 minutes, and I'm hoping it doesn't mean I'm talking really fast, but I think it does. So apologies if I've become indecipherable. So the third stop on my trip was Loop, London. Loop, I think, is maybe the best known yarn shop in London. It's in Islington and it's beautiful. Like, it feels like a real like treasure trove. It's stunning. It has all these like I don't know, like square shelving that's just overflowing with yarn, and it has a lot of the yarn that you only hear about, like from my perspective, I only hear about in podcasts. So it has Spin Cycle and Madeline Tosh and I can't even think of them now. Brooklyn Tweed and yeah, like a lot of things I only hear about designers and sort of people in the States most of the time talking about. So that is amazing, and going into Squish the Yarn is wonderful. It's always an experience. That being said, it is so pricey. I think I called it on Instagram like eye-wateringly expensive, and it really, really is. I think most of the yarns are talking like £25 a skein, and that to me is just like, that would have to be a really, 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 really cool yarn, and I'd have to know exactly what I want to make it from. And yes, I just find it like, I'm definitely priced out going in there. I just don't feel comfortable spending that much money on yarn. And the other thing is, like, I never feel particularly welcome there. It's definitely, it's not just me, because I shared this and other people have said to me the same. Like, it's not cold, I don't know, it just feels like too cool. Like, the place is too cool and I don't feel cool enough for the place. And that's definitely me, right? Like, that's how I feel. But it's beautiful, and if you're doing a trip, it's so worth the visit to go and look at it. But if you only have one yarn shop to go to, like, definitely don't go there. That's what I'll say. Or maybe do if that's what you're looking for, but if you're not looking for a really pricey yarn, I would recommend going. It is quite accessible. It's the most central of all the shops, so I understand why it's so popular. And they have amazing events. Like, last weekend they were due to have Amy of La Bien Aimée come and talk about her new worsted book, and that's amazing. Like, that's very cool. So they are popular for a reason. But yeah, not my favourite yarn shop in London. I made one purchase there, and that's where I bought my Chagu needles, which, to be honest, have been amazing, so I don't regret buying them. But I didn't leave with any yarn. I have bought yarn there once before when I was a very new knitter, and I bought, actually, this yarn. I bought a skein of, I went in and had no idea what I was looking for. I wanted to make a hat. I was horrified by how expensive everything was, and I bought a 50-gram skein of Blue Sky Fibres Woolstok, I think that's what it's called. Got home, couldn't skein it up, like, I couldn't ball it up from a skein. Like, I ended up with such a tangled mess, and like a tiny little ball of this and like this big a piece of tangle, and that was my only experience before. And I actually shared this, and a few people messaged me and said I did exactly the same. And the best story, somebody told me that they gifted somebody a skein of hand-dyed yarn, and they made a beautiful like shirt out of it. However, they cut out every single speckle because they didn't realise it was meant to have speckles. So honestly, these fancy yarns are lovely, but they're not, us new knitters don't know what to do with them sometimes. So that was Loop. The fourth shop I went to was Knit with Attitude. Knit with Attitude is in Stoke Newington, so like in the sort of northeast of London, and starting to come back into like where I live area, so that was quite helpful. I've followed them on Instagram for a long time. and they have a good selection of some things. So they had a lot of like Fibres baits, and they had, what was really exciting is some Hillesvåg, and I was excited because I feel like Hillesvåg is like a foreign concept. So I really enjoyed like squishing it and like, oh, this feels cool. And if I was in the market for a sweater quantity of yarn, I would have definitely bought some. But I have a few sweater quantities in my stash that I'm trying to use up, so I did not buy any. Other than that, they have a great selection of like the cocoa knits notions and stuff, and mood living, which is beautiful. But they also, like, part of the shop is also an art gallery, or they have like art prints and like nice gifts, and so it feels like it's not really a yarn shop. It feels like a nice things shop, of which yarn is one of them. So yeah, I didn't buy anything there at all. It's the only shop I bought nothing in, and yeah, I'm glad I went, and it would be good to know if I need Hillesvåg, that's where I would go for some. If I don't go to Norway soon. I think Hillesvåg is Norwegian. Oh. Okay, my camera's starting to die, so I need to get through these. So that was Knitting with Attitude, the fourth one. And the final stop is Woolly Knit. Woolly Knit is beautiful. It is in Homerton, Hackney area. I used to live there, and it's only like a 30-minute bus away from me. They have a wonderfully curated selection of yarn, and they have a lot of like rustic yarn, obviously wild and woolly. A lot of it is very woolly yarn. And I went there with the intention of buying non-superwash sock yarn. I don't know if anyone remembers, but I realised last episode that my favourite socks are non-superwash, and so I want to make myself some more non-superwash. So they stock Mondim by Retrosaria, and they also stock Garthenor sock, and my plan was to get one of each. We all know what's coming. I didn't. I got 3 Mondim. Because look at these colours. Like, these colours live together and should not be separated. At first I had like just these two, and then I had just these two, and then I had this and this, and so I left with all 3. But I reckon I've got like 5 pairs of socks out of this, and my plan is to try some interesting patterns, like maybe a stripy pair, and then maybe a texture pair, and maybe a pair with like contrast heels, hose and cuffs, and make like a bit of a sock collection, like 3 or 4 pairs for myself that are all matchy. And so that was amazing, and it was so sweet. I got to hear, and I told them that I've been doing a yarn tour of all the shops, and she's like, oh my goodness, do you want a cup of tea? Are you okay? It was so friendly and cute. So that was really, really enjoyable. I really liked it. The whole day was a lot of fun, and I came home and I went to knit night, which I can talk about. I guess I can just go straight into that. I went into knit night. We run a knit night on Zoom, which I'm running with Anastasia from Free Your Sheep and Caroline from Caroline's Knits. We have done it once before, and we did it one more time, and it was amazing. We stayed up until like 1 in the morning with the diehards. I think there were 7 of us left over, but at the peak of the evening we had like more than 50 knitters from all over the world, all different ages, all different levels of experience. It was amazing. It's so much fun. So we're still trying to nail down how to do it best, to have like breakout rooms so everyone can chat, but then also everyone can see everyone, and I think we're still working on that. But do feel free, if you're interested and would like to join in the future, to drop me a message on Instagram. And all 3 of us usually share a post when the next one's coming up with the dates, so if you follow any of us you should see more information on it in the future. But that's been so much fun, like very heartwarming to get to sit and just chat with some knitters, and we have some knitting celebrities in there. Last time we had our very own Amy Palco join, and we had Lily from Lily Kate Makes. And so it's really nice to have like designers and knitters and like brand new knitters, and we had in the past a designer and then someone who's test knitting the design also in the call. It was just really cute. So that's been so much fun. Yeah. So I think that is just about it for me. I was going to do some podcast recommendations, but I think I'm running pretty long on time now, and I was going to recommend 5 Scottish podcasts, but I think I'll save it because next time I'll be filming the first episode from Scotland, and maybe I can recommend them then when I'm up there. And otherwise, yeah, the next few weeks are a bit chaotic. We're moving just under 2 weeks, 13 days now. I need to start packing, and then we're moving just before Christmas, and the plan is to drive up to Scotland, unload the van, return the van, go to my parents' house, stay there for Christmas, and then start unpacking and getting settled between Christmas and New Year. A huge thank you to everyone who is local in Scotland and has said let's meet up for some coffee, because I'm so excited. I'm feeling much more comfortable about moving, knowing I have some knitty friends to meet when I'm there. And anyone who's wished us well with the move, that's just been really nice. I would say it will result in a downturn of knitting productivity, but that's not, I don't think that'll happen, because I'm just channeling all my stress into gift knitting right now. So no doubt I'll have lots of content. I have an idea about the next podcast and where I'll get to film it. I'm hoping to film a few days before Christmas, so we will see if that happens. Until then, I'll be enjoying a lot of Vlogmas. I am deep in the Vlogmas, guys. I'm really into it. I'm very glad I'm not doing it, but I'm very happy that some of my favourite creators are, and I'm watching a lot of their footage and content. And yeah, goodness, I've been talking for a long time. Apologies for the chaos of this episode. I don't feel like it flowed very well because I was so jumpy and here and there and everything. But I hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, thank you again for watching, and I'll see you next time live from Scotland, back in the motherland. Bye.